G'day everyone, Liam O'Brien here, back on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, and joining me today is a very special guest. He is the reigning WBC Australasia and WBA Oceania Super Welterweight champion, and he has a big test on his hands come November 23rd when he takes on Wade Ryan for the second time in his career, reliving their 2021 epic war. Koen, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
My pleasure, mate. Good to chat to you.
Certainly our pleasure as well, mate. We'll get straight into it. We'll get straight down to it. We remember that war, 2021 March. It was on big card. Tim Tszyu fought Dennis Hogan that night. Just an epic fight, and one that's going to live on, sort of in the boxing annals, for a long time. What sort of differences have you made since that night? Obviously, you're going to be taking on Wade again. What sort of changes have you made?
I learned a lot in that fight. That was Wade taught me a lot of lessons, a lot of little tricks and whatnot physically and in the boxing ring, but just also like my mental approach was a massive part that's been a change over the last couple of years. I was real unfocused that fight, feeling like I'd sort of made it there just by being on the show when the job hadn't been done yet. So over the last couple of years, man, I've just zoned in my focus, learned a lot more about myself, gone a bit more of like a holistic approach to my boxing. So I've had a long amateur career and like drilling down and learning the technique and skill to win a fight's a massive part, obviously. But there's a lot more that goes into that, and just knowing yourself, knowing my mind, and being able to make sure I make the right decision and actually get the job done in there is another thing. And just knowing how to win a professional fight, to win rounds, and to get through a long 8-round, 10-round fight.
100%, and you can sort of see that in the way that you have fought, particularly in the back-to-back fights with Joel Camilleri. But how much of that, what sort of goes into that mental change? I know you come from a very good camp, you've got your dad in your corner, but you've also got Rodney Williams, who's a very, very good trainer, both amateur and professional. What sort of goes into that mental training? Do you do that with those guys, or is it more so to do outside of the boxing realm, outside of the gym? And, do you go and, speak to a psychologist or a counselor, or what do you put it down to?
Yeah, man, I've had a lot of like experience outside of boxing and just like my own war with my own mental health. I think it's been a big thing that has, I guess, something I continue to grow and work on. That, you can, you talk to people and there's different professionals and whatnot that has helped in that regard. But just the practice of different things like meditation, yoga, reading, learning the art of war and the history behind man-to-man, one-on-one combat, and all these different parts that go into a fight. And just then, as I said, I'm on a journey to become the most spiritually and mentally sound person I can be, both for myself and for my family and the people around me. And boxing is a tool I use in a way, firstly, to create wealth and build a foundation to provide for my family, but also something to conquer myself and to continually press myself and stress myself in ways that I'm going to be uncomfortable to be able to, to find those places in my mind. I see boxing as a representation of life. You fight in the way that you train, and you train in the way you live. So, man, it's a practice of discipline, eating better, filling in all the little gaps. And as I said, really making my mind and my body like a temple designed to compete in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and as I sort of said just a minute ago, you can see it in the way that you fight, particularly from your last fight to in that span between the first fight with Wade. You can see the way that you're not sort of rushing in and jumping on whatever you can get. You're taking your time a little bit more. You're a lot more calculated, and you're still putting that pressure on, which is sort of a trademark of your game. But you're waiting for your opening rather than trying to force something, and I think that's really shown, and full credit to the way that you've turned it around. If we can just sort of change track a little bit, Super Welterweight is a division that's on fire in Australia. The Tszyu brothers are probably the two most popular in the division, but then you've got someone last month like Dennis Hogan who went on and won a world title, albeit the IBO version, but still a fantastic achievement and one that's well deserved. Then you've got a whole host of young sort of guys who are just starting to sort of make their mark. Ben Mahoney's another one who's probably on the verge of something special. Victor Nagbe, who just won an Australian title. But you're somewhere sort of in the middle. You've really burst onto the scene particularly in the last 12 months with these two regional belts that we just mentioned off the top. Where do you sort of see your position in this division, and what do you really hope to achieve?
I see myself as the best in the division. Currently, Tim Zoo's obviously experienced above me and at a world level, and I all respect him. We've shared the ring sparring multiple times, and he's the top dog in the division right now. But I believe that I'm more skilled and more talented, and with the discipline and hard work and living the sport that I do now, I'll be there one day with him in the ring, I'm sure. These other guys, Ben Marnie, he's a soft cock. He won't fight anyone. He's a pretender, in my opinion. He will not fight anyone. He won't even reply to my messages calling him a soft cock. Nikita, good fighter, young, up and coming. All these guys, Nagby, any of these guys, I've told it, or everyone that will listen, that I'll fight any of these guys and these fights that have been made. A lot of them do want to fight. Nagby's one that wants to take the challenge on. Nikita Zoo, we've been offered that fight before and said yes, and they turned it down because they didn't want it. We said yes to Michael Zarafa for this fight that he's now fighting. He didn't want that either. He said to me plain and simple that he didn't want it. So, man, I know who I am and where I'm at. I've been in this sport for 12 years. I've had 80 amateur fights and now 12 professional fights. And with my team behind me and with my belief in myself and the work that I put in, I'm going to the top. And the thing is, I haven't been signed to a promoter. I haven't had the exposure and the promotion like a lot of these guys have had. Zoos have their names and whatnot. No respect to them, man. Like, they're all, when I say these guys are bums and pussies, I'm talking about at a world-class elite level, because that's my aim and that's what I'm working towards. So any couch potato that's calling guys bums and pussies should shut their mouth and never say it. But in my opinion, I'm looking at world-class competition and trying to be the best in Australia and in the world. So anyone else that's not doing that, I don't have any respect for. But these guys like Wade Ryan, Joel Camilleri, the Zoos, these guys that are pushing themselves to the top and really want to be there, I respect and want to fight all of them and any of them. And I know I will be the best once all the straws, once the hat's down and we've all had our punch-ons.
It's an interesting point you just raised there, that you're not signed to a promoter. Obviously, this fight's going to be a no-limit fight, and the one with Wade before that was, I think the first Joel one was also a no-limit fight too, but then the rematch was DNL with Dean Lonergan. So is that by design? Is that sort of something that you've hoped to do? I know a few guys in your team like Munro Matet isn't sort of signed to a promoter. He'll bounce around wherever he can get a fight, and he's another dangerous guy within your gym who knows that he's got a lot of talent as well. Is that by design, the way you're sort of mapping out your career to do it that way?
Well, so we've just signed this fight is our first deal we've signed. We've signed a 3-fight deal with No Limit. So that's why you're seeing a little bit more exposure through them for me. And in the past, man, it's a funny game. It's a political funny game. And early days, the first handful of fights when you wanted to stay doing it on our own to build up a bit of, put a bit of chips on the table and come to these guys with some more chips on the table to, these guys don't want to pay people and they don't want to be giving anything away for free. So you need to be building up a reputation, a reason for them to do that for you. So we started off early with that goal in mind of just building our base and then looking at what the options are. I'm very lucky to have a really good managerial team, Dreamtime and Jared and the boys there, who have been looking after me since they were the ones that got me the first Wade Ryan fight and have made the decisions for me since. In the last couple of fights, we had some contracts and offers on the table, both from DNL, from No Limit, from a few different people, offers to go overseas and whatnot as well. So I'm lucky to be in a position now, as I said, with my managerial team and to have some offers on the table where, I feel like we've gone with the best one with No Limit. Those guys are killing it at the moment. They're showing it. They have a good of a job they can do. And they gave us a deal we were happy with. And talking about who's there and what the goals are coming forward, our goal is to beat Wade Ryan, and him having that close, reasonably competitive fight with Hogan, and Dennis Hogan going on to win the IBO title is definitely a fight I'd love, and I think No Limits are interested in making that fight happen as well. So Dennis Hogan for his world title is something I'd love, and as I said, I'm really in a good position now, having the promotional team, having the managerial team, having my day one coaching team with me. And I feel like all things are aligning and you're going to see some fireworks this next fight and the next couple of fights coming.
Oh, that's exactly what I want to hear, mate. Particularly, I'm particularly excited the fact that you're fighting Wade Ryan again. You mentioned then that No Limit are sort of a company that are starting to give a little bit more exposure now that you have signed to them, and so they should be, particularly for this fight. But it still feels like it's sort of been swept under the rug a little bit because obviously you've got Paul Gallen and Justin Hodges rematch at the top, but then you've also got Michael Zarafa back on TV. Are you a little bit surprised? And does that annoy you, the fact that it's sort of not garnering the kind of attention that you'd think maybe this kind of rematch should? Or do you kind of like the quiet build through camp and then doing it on fight night?
Man, I'm not too fussed. I know all things happen at the right time and come to me in the right time. There's been periods where I've been extremely frustrated in my career of thinking, where's this, where's that? I've learned that that's not the right approach, and the approach is just to focus on the job at hand. And if I keep doing the job at hand, I know I've got not only the ability to fight, I've got the ability to talk. I'm not the ugliest person in boxing in the world. And so I know that I'm sellable, as well as I've got the skill to go as far as I want to go. So I'm not too upset and interested really where we're on the card, what interest we get. I don't really care, because I know I'm going to put the show on that day. Wade and I had a cracker of an entertaining fight, and was considered one of the biggest fights, like most entertaining Australian fights of that year. So it is pretty interesting to be a little low on the card. I think we'll see what happens by fight time. They change it a lot of the time anyway. And man, I'm still building my name. As I said, I'm not in a rush. I'm not here. I'm not doing this for stardom. Like, I'm not doing it for stardom or money. As I said, they're things that come off me conquering myself and conquering this sport. They're the rewards and the fruits of the labor. But really, I do this because I love fighting, because I love the competition of it. I love the competition with another person that's put their life into it. And I love having to conquer it myself and grow and learn from this sport, and be able to, be a better person from doing that. But yeah, man, I do honestly, I think our fight's the best matchup on the card. Like, it's quite obviously the best matchup on the card for a boxing fan. Not a lot of people know what they're watching. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Boxing's not the biggest sport here. People like to see people talk and do the show and whatnot. So I'm learning to do that more. I'm learning to put my voice out there, and I like to be humble. I wish I could just be. I wish boxing was, back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where it was just the best fighters and it was respected and understood by most people. But we live in a world full of words and pussies, really, like these days, that don't understand physical combat or physicality in many senses. So we got to talk this talk, promote ourselves, and then I'm going to go punch this guy's head in, and I'll get the respect. I'll earn the respect.
Sorry to sort of jump sideways there, but you mentioned you're not the ugliest guy in boxing. I think I've probably got that one right here. Sorry for anyone who's got to watch this interview and see my ugly mug. Look, you did mention then, though, that, Wade has had that close fight with Hogan. He had a belter of a 2021, obviously. He beat you with that 10th round stoppage, but then he also had the win over Troy O'Meara, and then Nathan Waichaku, the Japanese team, a former opponent of Inoue, who fought Tim Tszyu that night as well. He had a really good fight that night too. But then he did lose that fight to Hogan. Is that sort of something you've read into a bit, the fact that maybe he is, the wars are catching up with him a little bit and he's a step behind? Or how do you sort of see Wade Ryan, the fighter?
I don't see that really. I think Hogan put a really masterful game plan together that night, and Wade doesn't know how to come forward. It's something that I wish I'd like. Our first fight, I knew that was the plan. I knew that he liked to go back and wasn't a great attacking fighter, but I completely lost my game plan and just went forward on him the whole night. Hogan took the back foot, made Wade lead off, would counter him and hold him and spoil him. He put a game plan together that worked really well and that Wade couldn't adjust to. The way that I see Wade as a fighter and where he's at, I see him as a very dangerous person still. He's not afraid to lose, obviously. He's not afraid for a fight. He has no... I'm very interested to look into his eyes at Wayne and see what I see there, but I doubt to see many cracks. What I do believe, though, is that he's got to believe, he's got to know in himself and feel that he is coming to the end of his run at some point soon, that he's just fallen out with this loss to Hogan, to his potential world title. And then if he does lose to me, he's really back on, at the drawing board. So I think he's going to become an extra hungry, extra motivated. But in my mind, that means he's going to be extra breakable. When he's in there with me, when he sees a dog come out, when he sees that I'm not playing and that I'm winning those early rounds definitively, I do believe that he might start cracking. I hurt him to the body twice last time. I know I've got the power to hurt anyone if I catch him right. He's a tough motherfucker and will not quit. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I'm keen to see what fate has in store.
I completely agree with most of what you said there. I have full respect for Wade Ryan. He takes tough challenges and he always pours his heart and soul into every fight that he has. And he comes from a small town where he's probably revered as one of their favourite sons. You know, one of my favourites to watch as well, Wade. So full respect to him. Look, that's where we'll sort of end. But one to finish, and you know, very generic. But you know, how does Koen Mazoudier get his hand raised that night?
In explosive and malicious fashion.
There you have it, folks. Great way to sound off and finish. Look, Koen, thank you very much for taking time to chat with us. All the best for your fight, folks. If you have any interest in boxing, you'll want to watch this. November 23rd, Wednesday night next week. It is at the Aware Super Theatre in Sydney. I'm sure there are a couple of tickets left on Ticketek. If not, main event, KO. However you can get to a TV, get there and watch it because this is going to be fireworks. Koen, thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all the best for next week.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate your time also.